Here with me is the Xiaomi 12T Pro, and I've been using it for a while now, and here is my review of the device. The 12T series consists of the Pro lineup and the non-Pro lineup, and the one with me is the Pro series. It comes in 3 different colors, which are black, silver and blue, and mine is the blue in color. And the 12T series has always been a slight step down from the 12 series, and as you can see from the back of the phone, it shares a similar identity as the 12, where the camera has a similar design as the 12 family. So from the back of the phone, you may not differentiate between the 12 and the 12T, but I believe this actually gives you the premium feel that you are using one of the 12 series. So with that aside, let's proceed with the unboxing of the phone. So the phone comes in this white packaging box, where I like its simplicity of the design, where it does not have a lot of wording or fanciful colors or design to the box. And opening the box, we are first greeted with the paperwork, and underneath the paperwork there is actually a clear case, which is a nice touch to actually include in the box. And putting that aside is the main phone itself. I like the color of this phone compared to the silver and the black, and the texture of the back of the phone is rather smooth and it does not actually give you any fingerprint. So this is the kind of finish which I like, especially for me who do not actually use the phone without a case. And underneath the phone there is a 120 watt fast charger, which is actually insanely fast. And the phone also supports 120 watts, so it's not those kind of where the phone supports say 80 watts while the charger actually supports 120 watts. No, it's 120 for 120. And it has a USB-A to USB-C cable for you to plug the phone to the charger, and that's about it in the box. So upon first boot up, when I go into the settings, it is based on MIUI 13.0.2 of Android 12. And when I first look at it, I thought it is MIUI 13 with Android 13 based on how the MIUI 13 actually stands out. And it is based on the July 2022 security patch. And as usual for most phones, there's usually at least one update, and this is no exception. And it bumps up the MIUI version to 13.0.3, and it actually has the September 2022 security update. However, it is still based on Android 12, but I believe it should actually come in Android 13 soon. The phone comes in only one configuration, which is 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of internal storage. There's a virtual RAM for you to increase up to 3 additional RAM, and there is no expandable storage in this phone. The phone comes in dual SIM, so you could actually put 2 SIM cards in it if say you need to travel overseas, or if you're a businessman that wants to separate your personal and your business SIM cards. So if you were to look into the applications of the phone, it comes the standard Google and Xiaomi applications, as this is the international version. However, there are a couple of pre-installed apps on the phone which could be seen in the More Apps folder, and I feel that based on how expensive the phone is, there should not be the pre-installed applications such as the social medias and the games that you may not actually play. However, these applications could be easily uninstalled by actually long pressing them and select to uninstall all of them at once. So at its home screen, you could actually select between the app drawer or the iOS style version. For me, I actually selected the app drawer version. I like how there are different categories at the top where you could actually customize them yourself as well. But there are a couple of default ones which they feel the application should be on the separate categories. I like how the search bar is at the bottom as well. So it's for easy reachability, where you can actually tap on the search bar and the keyboard actually pops up at the bottom. So it's kind of handy that everything is at the bottom there. And from the home screen, if you were to swipe down from the top, there is a split between the notification and the control center. Again, this is like an iOS style version. However, if you do not like this version, you could actually switch it in the settings, where you could actually have the toggle at the top and the notification at the bottom, which is the standard Android style. For its recent task, I actually like how Xiaomi actually implemented their recent. This could actually give you a glance as to what are the applications that are running in the background, and since we are kind of used to the social media style, it is rather handy for you to actually just scroll through and see what are the apps running in the background. Again, you could actually switch between the MIUI style and the standard Android style in the settings, So it is good that you have the customization to your preference. Moving on to the screen, it has a flat surface which I prefer over the curved edges, and it has a 120Hz refresh rate which gives you a smooth experience while using the phone, especially scrolling through content on social medias. And the display is acceptably bright under the sunlight, so it is rather okay for me, but it's definitely not the brightest display. It is a Full HD AMOLED display, and with AMOLED screen means that it has an in-display fingerprint sensor, which I feel that it is fast, but because of its animation, it kind of gives that 0.5 second slowness in it, but it is rather okay for me. And for the fingerprint placement, I feel that it is a little low on the phone, but it is something that you can get used to pretty quickly. And with AMOLED screen, there's also the always on display, and there are a couple of customizations that you can choose from the phone itself. Apart from that, I like how minimal the bezel is surrounding the screen, whether it is the top, the bottom, or the sides, compared to some phones which have a minimal display on the sides and the top, and it has a big chin, but it's not for this case. And at the top, you have the hole punch camera cutout, but the default screen protector or the screen peel gives a teardrop shape, which I actually do not like it. But for me, I'm not someone who actually removed the peel, so it is kind of okay for me when I'm using the phone or if I'm not looking at it, but it gives me the mixed feeling of the teardrop notch and the hole punch cutout camera at times. While we're talking about the exterior of the phone, let's move to the outside of the phone, of the sides and at the top. So at the right side of the phone is where all the buttons are. You have the volume button and the power button. At the left hand side of the phone is completely clean. At the top you have the speaker cutout as well as an IR blaster and a microphone. I'm kind of surprised that they actually include an IR blaster, because since this is kind of geared towards the flagship territory, usually flagship phones these days do not have an IR blaster. And having a speaker cutout at the top, I'm actually liking the speaker a lot, because not only it has speaker at the top, it has speaker at the bottom as well, and it gives a rather nice stereo and loud clear sound while you're watching content on the phone. And at the bottom of the phone, you have another microphone, a USB-C connector, and the SIM card slot. Both speakers are tuned by Harman Kardon and it actually gets the job done. And the whole body has an water and dust resistant of IP53, so it gives you the protection from accidental splashes. And also the phone comes with NFC, so as someone that actually uses Google Pay, this is definitely a handy feature for me to make payments and for transportation purposes. And speaking about the back of the phone, I mentioned earlier in the unboxing that I like how the back of the phone does not actually attract any fingerprint while using the phone, but the phone is rather smooth, so it may actually slip off my hands at times. And with the sets of cameras at the back of the phone, it actually increases the depth of the phone by quite a bit. However, if you were to place the phone on the table while typing, it actually does not wobble, unless you tap at the top left hand side of the phone, which is kind of rare for me, because most of the time I'll either be scrolling on the phone or typing, which does not actually cause any wobble. So I'm kind of surprised based on the design of it that it does not wobble that much, because I was kind of expecting it to do so. And speaking about the cameras, this phone is one of the first few that comes with the 200 megapixel camera at the back of the phone as the main camera. It is paired with an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. And at the front you have the 20 megapixel selfie camera. The main camera is stabilized, the ultra-wide camera is kind of underwhelming in my opinion, and the macro camera is really meh, that it gets the job done, but most of the time it's rather blur unless you have really steady hands and a great amount of light. And here are a couple of photos which I have taken using the main camera, which I really liked a lot. Whether it is daytime or nighttime, the main camera actually gets the job done. And since it's using the 200 megapixel camera, you could actually crop in to have a 2x zoom, which is actually quite usable. So it does not require an additional telephoto camera to have zoom in shot. However, I rather have a, say maybe a 5x telephoto lens compared to a macro camera and a better ultra-wide camera for this phone. Speaking about those two lenses, the ultra-wide camera gets the job done in daylight scenario. However, it kind of struggles quite a bit in nighttime, but there is the night mode to kind of support it to brighten up the photo. However, the clarity of the photo for the ultra-wide is not as good, say, compared to the main camera. So as you can see from the screen recording, if there's enough light, you actually shoot in the normal mode. But if there's insufficient light, for example this, the night 1 second will actually appear, or if it's darker, it actually shows like 2 seconds or more. The same goes for the ultra wide camera. So you can see it's super dark right now, and it shows that night 2 seconds in order to take a shot like this. But if there's enough light, or in this case it actually shows that you still need night mode to take photo using the ultra wide camera. For the selfie camera, whether it is the daytime or nighttime or the portrait shots, I feel that it stands between the main camera and the ultra wide camera in terms of the quality of it. For the macro camera, it definitely ranked the last amongst the 4 different cameras that you have on the phone. Apart from that, here are the sample videos which I have taken using the main ultra wide and the selfie camera. This is a sample footage of the main camera. It's defaulted at 1080p at 30 fps when you first enter the camera app. You can shoot 4K footage with the main camera up to 60 fps. There's also the option to shoot 8K at 24 fps, but I don't think that will be much of a use. So 4K is the way to go right now. There is the steady video option that you could opt for, but it's limited to 1080p at 60 fps. So this is how it looks like. There is also the option to shoot 4K 30 fps HDR video, but in this scenario you clearly do not need it, but this is a sample of how it looks like. For the ultra wide camera, it is only limited to 1080p at 30 fps. There is no even a 60 fps option, there is no 4K option, and this is how it looks like. For the front facing camera, you can shoot 1080p 60 fps, there's no 4K option, and I feel that it is a little cropped. However, it provides a good stability, so this is how it looks like. There is also the option to shoot HDR video, and similar to the rear cameras, it is also limited to 30 fps only. So this is a sample footage at night using the main camera, 4K footage, 30 fps, and this is how it looks like. This is the steady video, limited to 1080p at 30 fps at night, and this is how it looks like. And this is the HDR video, 4K 30 fps, and it does not seem to make any much of a difference between the HDR video and the regular video in my opinion. And this is a sample footage at night with the ultra wide camera. You can see that it is way darker than the main camera, and it's limited to 1080p at 30 fps, and this is how it looks like. And this is the sample of the front facing camera shooting at 1080p at 30 fps, and you can see that it is rather dark as well, but if there's some light you could actually see my face, otherwise the background it's rather dark. And this is with the HDR turned on, and it does not really seem to make much of a difference in my opinion. So whether it is day, night, whether it's the front or the rear, HDR does not seem to make much of a difference. So moving on from the cameras, the phone comes in 5000 mAh of battery, and it actually has a 120 watt fast charger that the phone supports. And to me, since I'm a rather light user, any phone that actually lasts 2 days or more is actually very good for me. And for this case, it actually lasts me for 2 days before I need to get the phone charged. And I like how fast the phone charges, as I could just wake up in the morning, get the phone plugged up, get myself prepared for the day, and by the time I'm done, I unplug it, it is fully charged. So that is one of a good thing about the phone that I like, which is the super fast charging. And for my day-to-day usage, since I mentioned that I'm a fairly light user, things I do are like browsing of contents on the browser, browsing social medias, reply to text messages, and reply to emails. I do not really play games much, and I take occasional photos and videos. So this is how I actually use the phone that allows me to last for 2 days. And speaking about the usage of the phone does not give me any kind of hiccup whatsoever, as it is running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. I know people online are complaining about how hot the phone can get, but that is only if you were to push the phone that hard. To me, I do not push the phone that hard. I do not really feel the phone being that hot. It may get a little warm at times, but it is okay for me. And moving on to the price, this phone costs $1,099, which I feel is a little high on the side, and it actually costs higher than the Xiaomi 12 that came out either earlier this year or late last year. And if you were to compare the retail price of the 12T Pro and the 12 Pro, I believe right now you would probably find a 12 Pro which costs lower than this, and even though it is running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 and not the 8 Plus Gen 1, there are a couple of perks that you actually can pick from the 12 Pro compared to the 12T Pro, such as the camera departments where it has a better ultra-wide camera and it comes with a telephoto camera instead of a macro camera, and it has a better screen where it gives you a higher brightness, and it also comes in LTPO tech compared to this phone that does not come in LTPO tech. And it has a 50-watt wireless charging. But of course, if you want the latest release phone, and this is clearly released later than the 12 Pro, and if you want the 8 Plus Gen 1 over the 8 Gen 1 because the 8 Gen 1 is seemingly hotter than the 8 Plus Gen 1, then maybe this is the phone that you would pick over the 12 Pro. So overall, there are a lot of things which I like about the phone, from its display where it has minimal bezel and it has a 120Hz high refresh rate. I like how the main camera and the selfie camera actually performs in both day and night time. I like how the speaker sounds like that is tuned by Harman Kardon, and he has both speakers from the bottom and the top of the phone that gives you a true stereo sound if you were to view your content in landscape mode. I like how snappy the phone is with the 8 Plus Gen 1 together with the 12 gigs of RAM, and it has 256 gigs of internal storage, which is a lot for me. I like the 120 watt fast charging, which is really fast. The downside of the phone is maybe the price, which I feel that it is a little pricey in my opinion, and it has a rather let down ultra wide camera, and the inclusion of macro camera should not even be included in my opinion. If I want to nitpick even further, which is the omission of 3.5mm headphone jack and the lack of expandable storage, but these two are definitely okay for me. There is also the lack of wireless charging if those who actually prefer wireless charging over wired charging. So yeah, if you enjoy this video, do give it a like, do comment down if you have any opinions, and do subscribe for future videos like this. Thanks for watching.